welcome to the stage, Richard Tice.
Some welcome. Everyone's on message. Thank you very much. People have clearly summered well. It's incredible. Here we are. Over 500 prospective parliamentary candidates for the forthcoming general election. What is absolutely clear we've got signs, we've got flags, there's going to be a general election, and we are ready. In fact, I think I can confidently predict we're more ready than any other political party. We're going to be ready for whatever parliamentary games Westminster and those politicians throw at us. It's incredible to think it's only 19 weeks ago that we launched the Brexit Party. I have to say it feels a bit longer. 19 weeks ago, in a family-run factory in Coventry, we launched our first event with our first 6 MEPs. 6 weeks later, we'd won a national election. We were the largest, and still are, the largest party in the European Parliament, although, of course, we don't want to be there for very long. And we had a simple slogan: change politics for good. And after that success in that election, the first thing that happened was, thankfully, we got rid of the worst Prime Minister this country has ever seen. And that meant that we also got rid of the worst, least talented cabinet this country has ever seen. So I think we can reasonably say we have started to change politics for good. Just imagine if we hadn't set up. Theresa May would still be Prime Minister, heaven forbid. That cabinet would still be there, heaven forbid. And we'd probably now be in the middle of a second referendum campaign. But thankfully, the world has changed. We have moved on. After the European elections, we had our big vision rally, some of which you saw on the screen there. And we announced some of our early policies. And I think some of them were quite popular, judging by your applause earlier. It's interesting, isn't it? Imitation is a form of flattery. And the Tories, of course, have basically copied almost everything we announced. We announced we'd scrap HS2, and sure enough, the Tories are having a review with the possibility of scrapping HS2. We said we're not going to pay 39 billion quid of taxpayers' cash, and now the Tories are talking about not spending as much, not sending over that 39 billion pounds. We said we wanted to invest in the regions, in the areas that have been left behind, and sure enough, Boris, in his leadership campaign, talked about investing in the regions. We said we wanted to invest in broadband, in digital infrastructure, and sure enough, the Tories are now talking about the same. We talked about an online sales tax to help protect the high street, and sure enough, the Tories are talking about the same. In fact, so bereft of their own ideas, they've even resorted to copying our own videos. So there's more policies coming, but that, of course, is why we mustn't fire all the policy bullets in one go. We need to hold them back, and we need to release them at the right moment. Because what is clear is that actually we've got the right common sense policies that are appropriate for this country. Now, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you here today. I know some have been delayed by trains and things, but you have shown great optimism in the future of our country after a clean break Brexit. That is the way that we maximise the opportunities, and you here share that belief that Nigel and I have. I want to thank you also for your courage. Most of you have never stood for public office. Let me tell you, there'll be some good days and there'll be some tough days. There'll be some highs and lows. And because the establishment are petrified of us, they're petrified of our success, they're terrified that actually we're on the right track, that actually democracy means something. And so, of course, they will do anything to talk us down. And that means abuse, vitriol. You know, I'm sure you've had some difficult discussions with friends, family. So I want to say a huge thank you to all of you for the courage to stand as a prospective candidate for the Brexit Party. Now, thank you. And we've got, you know, it's incredible. People, successful, achievers, doers, thinkers, people from all walks of life. Real people who've done real jobs, as opposed to pretty perfect policy wonks in Westminster. And we've got a short video. We've got a short video just talking about some of the candidates and why they're standing.
In just a few months, the Brexit Party has some amazing achievements. We've reset the political agenda, got rid of a hopeless Prime Minister, and made the option of a clean break Brexit the most popular one in the country. But now we face our biggest challenge, to fight a general election across the entire United Kingdom. And we are ready.
54% of people of Leicester East feel like they don't have a voice. So I'm here to give them that voice. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to that said they're never going to vote again, because how can you trust the political system now? People just want common sense, people like them representing them, and that's where the Brexit Party is firmly positioning itself. It's just a party of regular people like myself who want to get involved because we care, and then make sure that this sort of betrayal can never happen again.
People voted for something completely new, you know, voted to go out into the unknown and try something completely different and reclaim power back. We all have a stake in it, and I'm one of those people.
Even though I'm an ordinary person on Exmoor, running the Exmoor Pony Project, living an ordinary life, I just felt that I had to be part of it. We've stepped up because we simply have to defend and safeguard our democracy, and we're here.
From what I've seen, a lot of the Brexit PPCs now are just from normal backgrounds, just working class people who care about people as well.
I think there's a lot of commonality between a politician and a doctor. Consultation always begins with listening. You listen to what the person has to say, take on board, and then help them and make them realise that actually they've got control. They've got the power to decide their future and what to do and what not to do, and they're not helpless.
I'm just a normal, hard-working, working class person, but I think the taxi driver has given me an insight of how people live, and you get to learn their issues because you become their agony aunt. I tell the taxi driver everything.
I am ready.
I'm ready.
I am ready.
I'm definitely ready.
I'm ready.
We have an extraordinary cross-section of people from every walk of life making a stand for democracy. They will be our candidates at the forthcoming general election, and we are ready.
So, there's some other people, really important people I just want to thank, because, you know, to get over 500 approved candidates requires a huge amount of energy, hard work. We had 3,000 applications reviewed separately by 2 people. We did over 1,400 interviews with 2 people, over 600 approved candidates, and that required incredible hard work, effort, energy, enthusiasm, smiles. And that team was incredibly led by Leslie, AJ and Toby, and I'd just like to give them a huge thanks. There are, of course, many, many other people, too numerous to thank, but it's fair to say we've been pretty busy during August. So we're geared up, we're ready. In September, we've got our regional conference tour all over the country, and hopefully all of you will be there. Bring your friends, your family, activists, supporters, make sure they sign up. We'll be announcing more policies at those events. We have a vital, vital role now. This is a truly seismic moment in history. The big question, of course, is, can we trust Boris? We must not let him sell this country down the river by reheating, rehashing, and repackaging the worst deal in history, that dreadful withdrawal treaty. And there is, of course, it's easy to forget. We've all enjoyed the summer. It's easy to forget just how bad that deal really is. Indeed, when I was re-looking at it last week, it actually made us angry how people could think that that is a good deal for this country. And there is no person better to remind us just what a shocking deal it is. Isn't it good news to know that he hasn't lost his touch? Fired up, warmed up after the summer and ready for action. As is our next speaker, one of our MEPs, and she's had an interesting and varied career with a number of different phases to it. Her first phase, what I call her sort of pilot course, was trying things out as a Member of Parliament with the Conservative Party. She then realised that actually there were greater things out there, and she wanted to help teach us how to dance. And she embarked on a very successful TV career. Before the third phase of her career, I would definitely say her most important phase, which is to come and help the Brexit Party. And she was a huge, huge asset during the European campaign. Her wisdom, her knowledge, her experience was absolutely invaluable then and will continue to be so. Because, you know, when you're in politics for so long, you know all the tricks. You know the games that they play. You know what goes on in the back rooms. You know who you can trust and who you can't trust. And so we're incredibly lucky that we have Anne as part of our team. And before we welcome her to the stage, let's just remind ourselves of her in action
Former Conservative Minister Ann Widdecombe has announced that she will stand for Nigel Farage's Brexit Party.
Lifelong Conservative Ann Widdecombe has today announced that she is coming out of retirement.
The whole nation is fed up to the back teeth and just wants a resolution.
It isn't just the 17.4 million who have been betrayed. It is also generations to come who, if they have their way, will not grow up in an independent, self-governing country.
The national good comes first, and that's what everybody out there is saying, and what the clothiers in Parliament just aren't hearing. If we get worn down, if we can't get a deal, oh, then just call the whole thing off. No.
A Parliament full of cowards. A Parliament that is against democracy. A Parliament that believes that its will is more important than the will of the people.
I shall focus on one thing: delivering what the people voted for.
Please welcome to the stage, Ann Widdecombe.
Are you? Yes. Ready to fight, are you? Yes. That's not good enough. Are you ready to win? Yes. Because that's what this is all about. You are prospective candidates for a general election. And it's no good going into a general election to manage something that is just a halfway measure. We fight to win. And it's important that we know why we are trying to win and what we are trying to achieve. And everybody in this room who has signed up to fight for this party is fighting for democracy itself. You're not just fighting for those who voted Leave. You are fighting for everybody, because everybody in this country expects to be governed by a parliament that is itself governed by the will of the people. And if they get away with it this time, they will go on getting away with it. If they are able to stand up in Parliament and in the teeth of the decision that was taken in 2016 and in the teeth of all the promises that they made in their manifestos, if they are able to stand up in Parliament and say, we are going to overturn the result of that referendum, we are not going to implement it. If they are able to say that and then get re-elected, that is bad news for Britain for decades to come. The fight that we are all engaged in to restore proper democracy and to make sure that Parliament knows its place. And its place is delivering what the British people want, not thwarting what the British people have clearly said they want. Now, if there is a general election and Boris actually promises a clean break Brexit, then every single member of the Conservative Party, regardless of what they have been saying up till now, should be required to state clearly to their constituents that they will vote for that no-deal Brexit. Every single one of them, Boris, no exceptions. Now, if the other side want to stand for Remain, at least we know exactly where to take the fight. But I don't want to be fighting with a divided army, some of whom are behind the general and others of whom are simply saying, well, wait till the election's over and then we can go back to where we were before. They must not go back to where they are now. And as I have said before, if they won't make sure that Britain leaves, we will make sure that they leave. And that's where you all come in. You're the ones on the ground who are going to be making sure that those who have stood against the will of the British people, who have actually ratted on their own manifesto promises, that those people will never see the inside of Westminster again. Instead, we'll be at Westminster. You'll be at Westminster. And when we are there, we will make sure that Parliament is run on democratic lines, that the will of the people is implemented, that politicians tell the truth and don't shilly-shally, and above all, that Britain regains its sovereignty, its independence, its freedom to do as Britain wants, not what Europe tells us we should be doing. Up and down the country during the European parliamentary elections, I was asking people various questions. And one of them was, could we stay in the EU and control our own laws? And another was, could we stay in the EU and control our own borders? And another was, could we stay in the EU and control our own trade deals? And the answer to that was no. But now let me ask you a different question. Can we control our own laws, borders and trade deals if Boris Johnson gives us a weakened version of the May deal? No. And Nigel has explained very eloquently this morning that there is far more danger to the May deal than is exemplified by the backstop. And your job, in whatever constituencies that you have been assigned to, is to press and to harry the sitting Member of Parliament as to whether he or she believes that any version of the May deal is good for Britain. And above all, we need to force Boris Johnson to say whether he now only wants changes to the backstop or whether he really wants to change the May deal. And if he says that the backstop, as he appears to have said in a letter, that the backstop is the only outstanding issue, then quite frankly, we are back to where we were with Theresa May. Oh yes, he does want to leave. Oh yes, he is much more charismatic than Mrs. May. Oh yes, he has taken a real air of determination into the EU. Oh yes, even Macron has blinked. All that is true. But if what he gives us is the May deal, we might as well have stayed with Theresa May. She was a bad Prime Minister for this country, but her time in office was limited. This deal is bad for this country, and once signed, it won't be limited. And that is what this campaign will be about. We have to make sure that we have genuine independence, that we leave without any deal, and then negotiate a future relationship from a position of power, not on our knees. Why should we ever have been on our knees to the EU? We're the world's 5th largest economy. What are we scared of? They owe their very freedom to us. We should be proud. And the only way that we're going to get them to take us seriously and to start negotiating in any meaningful way, the only way we're going to get them to treat us as equals is if we are equal, by which I mean no longer part of their bloc, but a sovereign, a truly sovereign state making its own deals, whether trade deals or about anything else. That is how we will finally get a future relationship with them, which is not that of master and servant. Now, as I said, it's down to you. Yes, Nigel and Richard and I and others, we will be campaigning up and down the country when the time comes, but it's down to you. It always is down to you. And I know that from 20 years' experience in Westminster as a member of a party that I'm now ashamed even to mention. And I know it's the people on the ground who make the difference. And not just the candidates, before that the prospective candidates, not just them. It is all the people who will be helping you. They are the heroes of any campaign. And whatever you do between now and any general election, build a team, a real team, because you won't be able to do it all. You may be in one place, but you want lots of other people in those places where you are not at that time. So build a team, and it will be a winning team. We will play great cricket. This is not a team that is going to bat half-heartedly. It is not a team that is going to go into the fight thinking, oh dear, well, I hope I make a good showing. No, no, no. You go into that fight saying, I am going to win. So what I'm asking you today is, not whether you're ready to fight, I know that, but are you truly, really, in your very gut, ready to win? Are you ready? They are ready.
They're ready. Isn't she great? She is truly fantastic, an inspirational speaker, someone who has so much experience, so much wisdom, so much knowledge, as I said before, and it really comes through then. That inspiration, that advice is absolutely invaluable. Remember it every single minute, hour of every day during the inevitable campaign that we think is going to start very shortly. So we're going to have a press questions and answers short now. I'm hoping that Nigel is ready to come back to answer those. Gwen, is our leader ready for action? All of which are very important indeed. It's looking like 5 minutes is being waved at the back, or 5 seconds, probably 5 minutes. Before that, in terms of the way the rest of the day is going to work, so we're going to do a press conference with some questions from members of the press. We're then going to have some words of wisdom from some of the other MEPs who have been with the party since the beginning, from Jake Pugh. We're then going to hear from Matthew Patten and from John Longworth. And then we'll have lunch. After lunch, we're going to have a huge, massive, enthusiastic, smiling team photograph before we move on to the rest of the day. Now, I think we've got our leader back to come down and hopefully receive some questions from members of the press. So, right, who have we got? Who's up first? Don't be shy from the press. Any questions? Someone, I can just about see your hand raised. If you give us your name and which organisation you represent and who you'd direct your question to.
I'm George Ryan from PA. This is for Mr. Farage. You speak of a non-aggression pact with the Conservative Party. Have you reached out to the party and had conversations with the leadership about this, and are these happening at the highest level?
No, we've been busy getting ourselves organised. We've been quite low profile as a party over the course of the last few weeks. That's because we've been getting this fine array of men and women together, and the message from today is very clear. We are ready, and as far as the Conservatives are concerned, well, I suppose we could be their worst enemy, or in some ways their best friend. It all depends what they do. What I do know is this. If I stood up today and said, it's all been jolly good fun, thank you very much, we're closing down, the chances of a clean break Brexit would hover at around about 0. The Conservative Party never do this on their own. You know, it was Jimmy Goldsmith that got them to pledge to hold a referendum before taking us into the euro. It was UKIP that got Cameron to promise us a referendum on EU membership, and it will be the Brexit Party that ensures we get a clean break Brexit, because if they don't do the right thing, they will electorally be wiped out. I think the European elections showed us that.
Who's next? Anyone else? At the very back there, yes. A cautiously raised hand. Don't be shy.
Still Robin Millard from AFP. Mr. Farage, are you going to be standing in the general election, if there is going to be a general election, and where would you stand?
Yes, and to be determined. There will, by the close of play today, you'll be able to see the names of 425 men and women and the constituencies to which they've been allocated. The rest is work in progress. It'll all be completed within the next couple of weeks.
Another arm raised there. Hi.
Thanks. Ben Quinn from The Guardian. Mr. Farage, Boris Johnson appears to have done more than steal some of your language, actually. He's struck up a particularly good relationship with Donald Trump. How much do you worry that he's doing more than stealing your clothes, but he's actually on the way to neutralising you as a threat to the Conservative Party?
Look, the fact that the British Prime Minister at the G7 struck up a good relationship with the President of the United States is something we should all cheer and celebrate. It's a very good thing. There was quite a long period of time in this country when I felt I was just about the only political figure that had anything nice to say about the US President. I'm pleased to see that it's catching. The only thing I would say was that Trump was effusive in his praise of Boris Johnson and his desire to get together and put a trade deal in place as quickly as possible. I was a little bit surprised that Boris Johnson said, well, it will take at least a year, because I think what John Bolton came up with was a brilliant idea. You leave the difficult things to last, but sector by sector, you start making agreements. And there is absolutely no reason why Boris can't get his pork pies into stores in Chicago by Christmas. All we need is the political will.
Pork pies in Chicago. So, any more questions from our friends in the press about that? Yes, hi.
Quentin Letts from The Times. How would this non-aggression pact, are you trying to impose conditions on Boris Johnson as far as his candidates go? Something Anne said earlier suggested that perhaps. So could you do a non-aggression pact with Boris Johnson if, say, Philip Hammond were still a Conservative candidate?
Well, that's a very good question, and perhaps you better come and stand for us with a question like that. I rather like that. Look, it is. I did say earlier, can you trust the Conservative Party? And the truth of it is, there are too many Philip Hammonds in the Conservative Party. It's why, of course, Boris Johnson cannot do this on his own. The only condition that we would impose upon the Prime Minister in order to have a positive conversation is that he does the right thing, that he keeps his promise, and that, do or die, we're leaving the European Union on the 31st of October. And if he makes his mind up that that is the right thing to do, despite the Philip Hammonds, he knows that we would agree with that, and together as a team, in whatever form of us not standing in areas and maybe them not standing in areas, whatever form that came about in, I have no doubt, given where public opinion is, given how much we in the Brexit Party have helped shift public opinion towards wanting a clean break Brexit, together we'd be unstoppable, and Boris would have a huge majority and go down as one of the great heroes in British history. We'd be delighted to make him a hero. We just want our country back. That's what we're here for.
Now, I think there was a question just behind Quentin. The lady, was there? Yes, there we go.
Hi. Eleni Correa from the Times. I just wanted to ask, will you consider not standing candidates in constituencies held by Conservative MPs who are hardline Brexiteers, for example, ERG members? And if not, would you not be splitting the Brexit vote there?
Look, I did mention the ERG when I spoke earlier. I also mentioned the handful of very brave Labour MPs who, having to put up with the most extraordinary levels of abuse, have tried their best to keep true and consistent with the Brexit vote in their constituencies. Look, right at this moment in time, I'm trying to help the Brexit Party go forwards, not backwards. So we're preparing to find candidates for every single seat in the country. After that, we'll work out who the people to do deals with and who the people are not to do deals with. But I can confirm we will be standing against Philip Hammond. Of that, there is no...